I'm 35. Divorced a mother to a 17-year-old boy who's starting to live in a world that doesn't need me the same way anymore. And I'm learning to live in a world that feels quieter. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more stories that feel like your own, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment that might stay with you forever. Last summer, he brought home a friend. Arif, polite, quiet, confident in a way that didn't match his age. He had eyes that said more than his words ever did. And when he smiled, I swear, time did something strange the first time. I really noticed him was when I came home. From work early, he was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, helping my son make pasta. He looked up, gave me a smile, and said, "You always come home just when it starts to smell good." I laughed. I don't remember the last time someone made me laugh like that. Not because of a joke, but because of how they made me feel seen that evening when they left. "The dish is half done. Arif stayed behind, I'll help clean up," he said, reaching for a plate. His fingers brushed mine. It was brief, innocent. But something changed. Was heartbeat, a silence too loud to ignore. Weeks passed. Little things followed the way. He always said goodbye last the way. His eyes lingered a second longer than they should have, the way I started, waiting for him, even though I told myself I wasn't. One night it rained. Heavily, my son was away for the weekend, and Arif came to return, a book he borrowed. "Oh, breathless, smiling, you should have called," I said, handing him a towel. "If I had, you might have said no." He stood there, dripping on my floor, and I stood there, heart beating in places. I thought had forgotten how we didn't speak for a moment too long. He looked at me, like he was memorizing every line of my face, and I let him. His voice softened. "You ever wish you met someone at the wrong time, but still right enough to matter?" I didn't answer. Couldn't instead. I stepped back and he stepped forward. Just one step, just enough to feel the heat between us. No lines were crossed, but all of them were seen since that night. Things changed. Every glance carried a memory we hadn't lived yet. Every word meant something else entirely. Sometimes he'd say things like, "You deserve more than silence." Ugh. Some people make you feel alive just by staying. Maybe it's not about age, but about timing, and every time I felt something awaken in me, something I buried long ago. People might never understand this kind of story. They'll see the years between us, but they'll never see the nights he sat alone wishing to be chosen by someone who saw me not just as a mother or an ex-wife or someone who's moved on, but as a woman who could still be wanted, still be held still, be loved, not in a loud way, but in one that burns quietly and never leaves after that rainy night. When Arv stood in my doorway, drenched and breathless, something shifted. We didn't cross any lines, but the air between us was charged, filled with unspoken words and lingering glances. He began to visit, more often, always under the guise of returning a book or helping my son with a project. Each visit was a dance of proximity and restraint. Our conversations were laced with double meanings. Our touches, accidental yet electric. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, he offered to help, standing close, our hands brushed while reaching for the same utensil. I looked up. Meeting his gaze, there was a question in his eyes, one I wasn't ready to answer. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, unable to find my voice. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if things were different," he continued. I turned away, focusing on the task at hand, trying to ignore the fluttering in my chest. That doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the quiet moments. Day turned into weeks. Our interactions became more frequent, each one more intense than the last. Yet we remained on the edge, never crossing the invisible line we had drawn one night. I found a note slipped under my door. "Meet me at the old bookstore tomorrow at 5 now p. I have something to show you." Curiosity got the better of me. The next day I arrived at the bookstore, the familiar scent of old pages welcoming me. Ari was there, holding a worn-out book. This was my mother's favorite, he said, handing it to me. Inside was a pressed flower. Its colors faded but still beautiful. I wanted to share it with someone who'd appreciate it. He added, our fingers touched as I took the book, and for a moment the world faded away. Some connections are too profound to be defined. That evening, as I sat alone, I couldn't help but think about the path we were on. It was dangerous, filled with uncertainty, but also exhilarating. I knew we couldn't continue like this. It wasn't fair to anyone involved the next day. I called Arif, we need to talk. I said we met at the park, the place where our journey had suddenly begun this. Whatever it is between us, it can't continue as started. He looked at me, pain evident in his eyes. I understand, he replied, but know that you've awakened something. Amy I thought was long dead. I nodded, tears threatening to spill, and you've reminded me that I'm still alive. I whispered we parted ways, the silence between us now filled with memories and unspoken words. Sometimes the most profound love stories are the ones that remain unfinished. Life returned to its routine. Arif stopped visiting, and I immersed myself in daily chores, trying to forget the emotions he had stirred. But every now and then, I'd find a pressed flower in a book, or a note with a quote from our favorite author. Subtle reminders that our story, though brief, had left an indelible mark. And in those moments, I'd smile, cherishing the silent love that had blossomed and faded, leaving behind a trail of memories. It's been 3 months since I last saw Arif. The silence was mutual but not painless. My days returned to routine, but some things never felt the same. The chair he used to sit in stayed slightly pulled out, his coffee mug. Yes, I started calling it his. Remained untouched at the back of the cupboard one Sunday morning. While sorting through my son's old school books, I found something tucked between 2 notebooks was a folded page. My heart paused as I unfolded it. If timing were kinder, I would have asked to hold your hand in public. If the world were softer, I would have written you letters with no fear of being read. But this heart mine will always belong to the moment you looked at me like I mattered. There was no signature. It didn't need one. I sat on the floor, letter in hand, realizing some stories don't need a perfect ending. Toby, unforgettable. Sometimes the greatest love is the kind that exists quietly, unchanged, unspoken, but always felt in somewhere out there. I know he remembers too, not with regret, but with the same silent smile I wear every time I think of him. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more stories that feel like your own, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment that might stay with you forever. Thin, or maybe just the part we never